Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Beat to Lead conversation. Today, we have a great honor to have here Debra Rue. Debra is CEO at Rue Global Impact and Executive Chair at Billion Strong. Debra, welcome. It is such an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm very excited about your show. So thank you for having me. It's an honor.
It's going to be a blast, this conversation.
Ah,
And without taking any time to your story, I invite you, please, just to share, introduce yourself a little bit. Who is Deborah Rowe today?
Today, all right, let's see. As we get older, we have more of a story of who we are. But I, um, I've decided that I'm a mature woman. As a for a visual description, if somebody's listening or you can't see, and you'll understand why I say this later, but I am a woman that has gray hair with purple in it. So I'm having fun with it. Uh, and I have on a aqua shirt, and I have on a cool little old necklace that I just love old necklacey things. So, but I I am a mother. I am a wife. Sadly, my husband died a few months ago of dementia, which was a hard, long journey. So I
Mm,
guess I'm also a widow. Um,
mm,
and I'm very proud to be a woman like you, Barbara, that I believe is adding value to the world. So, Rue Global Impact is all about including people with disabilities in a more meaningful way and stop trying to get society to stop deciding that certain people are broken because you're broken because you're a
mm.
woman. Okay, yeah, whatever. You're broken because your skin is darker than me. You're broken because, like my daughter, you were born with Down syndrome. My daughter's not broken. My
Yeah.
daughter just her brain works differently from others.
Mm,
So, and at the same time, I'm a technologist focused on making sure that technology is created tech for good, tech for all, and really making sure that whatever we're doing, we are tying it into protecting our planet, protecting each other, including each other. So I'm many things. I came from the banking industry for
mhm.
many years, and when my daughter with Down syndrome hit middle school, and once again, I was told how incompetent she is, how broken I thought this is ridiculous. Why are we treating
Mm,
people
mm,
this way? And that's when I created Tech Access, which was a technology company focused on making sure websites and technology was fully accessible. And over 90% of my team were talented individuals with lived experiences with disabilities. So it's gone so many places since then. But I will say, I have for a long time been doing social justice, social impact type work. And I've struggled with cash flow because I see the world not really caring as much about these topics. Now, things have shifted a lot since the pandemic,
mm,
but now I'm having really powerful conversations about why are we building Internet 3 or the metaverse, for example, and we're going
mm.
to make all the same mistakes we already made. We're not going to include it so that everybody can participate. We're building smart cities, okay? Gigantic, amazing smart cities. Are they accessible to all of us? Are they accessible to people with disabilities, children with disabilities, people like me that are getting older and
Mm,
acquiring disabilities?
mm, mm.
Are we building it for humans, Barbara? That's the work.
And it is innovative, actually, your perspective and when you're coming from. And I'm wondering, it seems like you have been aware of diversity, all kinds of diversity, for a long time.
Yes.
um, there has been a moment, I assume, when you started to become more aware. And how did that happen, and how can we become more aware and somehow wake up
Yeah.
to all kinds of diversities? Perhaps not everybody has the experience of having a child that is with has some disabilities, and therefore we are not stimulated or not even think about that. So how can we become more sensitive and open to
Right.
all kinds of diversity? How was your story like?
Well, and I also think that to answer that question, we have to look outside our own borders. I'm in the United States. I'm in Virginia. I was born in Florida. And you know, we have to look outside our own borders to make sure other people are okay as well. And I think in the United States we are struggling with that. So I think there's, but we're not the only country. And so I think we have to try to understand the diverse nature of human beings.
Mm,
Sometimes we use different language because we're from a different part of the world. Sometimes we're culturally different. Sometimes we have different opinions of, is there a God or is there no God? I mean, we're such a diverse species,
mm,
but at the same time, we're you know we're so much more alike than we're different. So I think as I have been walking this journey a long time, I there were things that I've learned along the way. For example, one thing I did not know about myself, and I had a bunch of friends make fun of me when I figured this out, was that, oh, I'm also part of the disability community. I'm neurodiverse and I have ADHD, which I did not get diagnosed till I was in my 50s. And things make a lot more sense to me. It's like, oh, because people are like, why do you work so much? Why do you do that? Oh, because I have ADHD. And the good news about having ADHD as an adult is we're extremely productive. But the bad news is it can cause us anxiety because we don't know when to stop working and blah, blah, blah. So when I first realized that I was part of the community, I didn't want to say that I was part of the community because I didn't want people to think I was sort of tokenizing it, right? But I was speaking one time, for example, at a large conference, and somebody said, "What do you think is the number one problem for people with disabilities? What do you think is the biggest problem? Because there's so many problems." And I said, "Well, the number one problem is that people don't even realize they're part of the community, and if they do realize they're part of the community, they don't want anybody else to know they're part of the community." So I'm actually supporting a community that doesn't have really good identity. And then like all other communities, the community infights. And so there's a lot of complications. So I think I started understanding how others were seeing identity and applying it to their lives, and how I was. And so right now on the screen, I have Debra Rue, she, her, hers. And I have people sometimes that tease me in other countries and go, "What are y'all doing over there in the States?" But maybe we have to break it down into all these little bite sized pieces right now to understand how immense these conversations are. So you're Italian, Barbara. You're a woman. We all have lived experiences. What can we do to look at these experiences and value them? Really value that you had experiences as a child being bullied, for example. Well, I don't want to value that. Well, what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about how to stand up for yourself? So I
mm,
think what is happening right now, we're trying to normalize these conversations. Is it okay to be an older woman? Barbara, when I was a young girl, I was hearing that actresses at 35 were done.
mhm,
They were
mhm.
done at 35. Oh no, oh no, I'm a little past 35, Barbara. Oh no. Yeah.
So what I understand from what you're saying is that one way that you started to become aware of diversity is, first of all, noticing your own diversity and own it,
Mhm. Own it.
and really value it in this sense. Not that you want to impose it, not in a dichotomic way, which where we say something is better than something else, but simply creating a space for this kind of diversity to express itself, and there is room, an abundance of room for everybody to contribute. So I understand that the maybe one lesson, the first lesson that we are learning now already from what you're sharing of your experience is asking ourselves, how much do we know about our diversity, and how much do we own it? Doesn't matter what kind of diversity was
Oh,
it.
well said. Well said. Totally agree. And can we allow others to live their truly authentic life by owning and living their experiences?
Did you find people that allow that in your case? How was your experience around that?
Well, by the time I figured out that I had ADHD, um, a doctor friend of mine first, brought it up to me on a day when I was feeling extremely stressed because I'd had a really, you know, I worked too much the day before. He
Mm,
was like, you could actually get some help with that. But I, I think, and I'm going to back up and I'm going to say it a different way. When my daughter and my daughter's 35 now, speaking of
mhm,
35, but when she was diagnosed with Down syndrome, which was at 4 months old,
mm,
it's unusual. Usually we find out that you have a child with Down syndrome before the birth or right at the birth. So it was sort of unusual that they didn't catch it. But it was a blessing for me because I had 4 months to fall madly in love with this baby. By the way, I was in love with her before she ever was born, but so when they were telling me using language that told me and my husband that she was broken, I just wasn't buying it. I was like, yeah, whatever. I've already known this baby outside me for 4 months and she's not broken. She's curious. She's creative. She's a smarty pie, even at that little, you can see the cheekiness of the personality. But I think, continuing to just really value people and their differences and really but I will be honest with you, Barbara, whenever people would notice that she had Down syndrome, I remember so distinctly, not very long after the diagnosis, I was driving through a fast food restaurant in Florida, and the teenager that was waiting on me said she leaned out the window and she saw my beautiful daughter and she's like, "Oh, does your daughter have Down syndrome? She's so precious." I wanted to, just drive away as fast as possible. I didn't want people to know my daughter had Down syndrome.
mm.
But, that's my daughter's lived experience. And so, I mean, that was, she was 5 months old at that point. But I think sometimes we have to learn how to, walk these journeys.
And what you're saying is really so inspiring because I take it back. First of all, when people become parents, we assume that it is natural, but in fact, it is a skill that we need to learn, isn't it? You need to learn to be a parent, and being a parent of a baby with Down syndrome is something that you need to learn as well because it is something new. And it is a I wrote down here in my note while I was listening to you, we need to expand our capacity for appreciating and for learning about diversity. And you did not want for people to know that your daughter had Down syndrome. That means that emotionally you had to expand as well.
Right.
How do I feel about it in a new way? And I think this is another important lesson, that all kinds of kids and people that we encounter are opportunities for us to expand who we are.
Oh, well said. Well said. And I really agree with Billion Strong, the
Mhm.
nonprofit that we just created. And I created it last April, but as I already mentioned, sadly, my beautiful husband went to the other side. And so during that time, I was a little appropriately distracted.
Yeah.
Um, but we built it for to encourage people with lived experiences with disabilities to come out and force. We know for sure we have 1.7 billion people with disabilities, but to be honest, we think that number is much higher because many countries don't do census, but also because we are biological beings that
Mm,
sometimes we get older and we don't see as well, we don't hear as well, we don't smell as well, we don't. Sometimes we're born with disabilities. 80% of the disability community, 80% acquire their disabilities after birth. And
mm,
also 80%, speaking of 80s, 80% of my community, the community of people with disabilities, have hidden or invisible disabilities.
mm,
So you don't know who you're talking to or what, or you can't look at somebody if you can see, for example, and make a decision about who they are by the color of their skin, for example,
mhm.
because you might be really wrong deciding that, right? Which we do that in society. But I think now we need to be especially all of us, but especially as women, we really do need to allow people to be who they are. Really allow people to be who they are. Be who you are, but don't hurt yourself or hurt others. I get that. But I think it's a time of really understanding how diverse we really are. And I'll tell you just something, Barbara, I learned over the last couple of years. I am very supportive of all diverse communities. Obviously, it's just sort of who I am. I also think we should take care of our beautiful planet and all the other earthlings that are on, but um, I was a little confused about why the LGBTQIA plus community, they had so many letters. And what I assume, well, I mean, I knew it in a different way. So I understood they were trying to bring together a really diverse group of people that believe different things, they're different in a lot of
Mhm,
ways,
mhm.
together to fight for their rights. We are stronger together. And because they did that in the United States, they now are appropriately allowed to marry. Now, whether or not I'm not going into politics. But what I didn't, one part I didn't understand was that they were taking all these words back. They were taking them back, Barbara. So lesbian, queer, transgender. I mean, gay. They were taking the words that had been used for their community to hurt them in a lot of times, and they were taking their words back. There is a word that we use in the United States that I'm not going to use for a lot of reasons because it's a word that is used to hurt other people, but it's a in word.
Mm,
And I just, as a white person, Caucasian person, I'm not going to use that word. Sometimes I see African Americans using that word in music. And if that community wants to take that word back, and if, y'all don't know what the word is, it's a bad word and I don't use it. I also don't like the C word that's used sometimes for women to hurt women, you know.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but they it was LGBTQIA because they're taking back the words that other members of society have used to hurt them with. And so that is beautiful to me. And the Me Too movement, Barbara, we all went through.
So with this sensibility that you have and you have developed, I assume, towards all these kinds of diversities, how have you built your career? Excuse me, your career as a woman leader. How did you navigate your story, and how did you manage to respect? It seems you were able to respect all these diversities.
Yeah. I'm learning every single day. Every day I'm learning, but I first when I went into being an entrepreneur, I was a mother with a cause, get out of my way, and but as I really got into the community and I started wanting to help people with disabilities, but um I started slowly over the years realizing that if you are a person with a disability living in a developed country and you're Caucasian, or you're white, depending on how you say that word, you actually have more advantages than you do if you are a member of the LGBT community or if you are a black or brown woman. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so I thought, wait a minute, why are we not including those members of our, sort of the intersections?
Mm,
And so, and then I started, of course, paying attention to what the world was doing. And the Me Too movement, of course, was a very powerful movement that brought down a lot of men that were really acting inappropriately. But
mhm,
that's been going on forever,
mm,
forever.
mm,
So I think now is a time, those of us that really want to truly have a kinder, gentler, better world for everybody, technology that doesn't exclude people, gaming that allows everybody to play,
mm,
I
mm,
think now is when, especially us women, we need to come together and we need to show what it looks like to collaborate and partner. And Barbara, when I first started my business, I'm in Virginia, and I love Virginia. Um, I was told by a white man that I would never be successful in Virginia if I didn't have a white man running my company as a CEO. And it made me so mad when he said that, Barbara. It made me mad. And I
Mm.
thought, oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, yeah. You go ahead and tell me I can't do it. Go ahead. But I actually used that in other data to get a certification in the United States that is advantageous to businesses. And what they wanted to know was if you've been discriminated against. And I said, yeah, I'm a woman in technology and I love technology. And I have white men telling me that I'm not going to be successful. I mean, I quoted him. I gave his name. Go
Yeah.
ahead and tell me I
Well,
can't do it.
we own what we say, isn't it?
Oh,
That's an opportunity over there. Yeah.
right, right. So I had lots of legs thrown out to try to trip me up, but
Mm.
we're I
How,
just
how did you move forward from there? What skills, what abilities did you put in action so that you could overcome those challenges? So that people that are listening and are facing the same, they might find in you a role model for that.
yeah, and I'll tell you in a funny way because obviously I'm a smart aleck myself, but um I somebody said to me, a guy that was he was going to go out in business, and he said, Deborah, how'd you get over the fear? Because, the fear of paying your employees on time, the fear of the contract, there's so much things to be afraid about. And I said, oh, I didn't get over the fear, but I just walked through it. I didn't let it stop me. Feel the fear and do it anyway. I get really nervous. We have had cash flow problems during this pandemic stuff. I mean, the world has shifted and changed, and so I just, I don't think we should let anything stop us. If you have a desire that has been laid on your heart, a purpose that says, I'm going to go do this, go do it. But as Barbara just said, make sure you find people that are like minded that will help you. And which is why your work is so important, Barbara, because you're helping tell the stories of those of us so that we can meet each other and learn from each other and inspire each other. But we can all contribute, but don't let the fear stop you. Don't. It doesn't mean I'm not terrified all the time. I mean, my husband died, so
So, and that is definitely something that we need to learn to overcome as well. And I'm sure you are doing it graciously. When you say, I would like just to go a little bit deeper, if possible, right? When you say, because we have heard it, feel the fear and do it anyway. There is this great book as well, right? That says
yeah,
it.
yeah.
If you could tell specifically does that mean? So does it mean I am feeling the fear and I don't want to invest, even if it is a small investment, because I have this anxiety and fear coming in? So what do you actually do? Do you go and invest? Do you ask for help and ask somebody to come with you? I don't know, and go
Right.
to make, well, what did you actually do? If you can share some
I
example.
I can, because this is what I do. This is how I manage it. Um, I'm afraid of something. Like something happened this morning with a client, and we're like, well, if we do that, I'm afraid. But if we do that, I know that's the wrong thing. I know it's the wrong thing, and so I know the thing I'm afraid of is actually what we got to do. So how I handle something that I know I have to do, and how I know it is, I just listen. I can feel it. I feel it in my chest. I can feel. I don't know how to explain that. We are energy beings, though we are, and so you'll get help from anyway. But what I do is and this is probably bad. This is just how I do it. I try to think, if I do that, what could be the possible, what could be the worst outcome? So if I do that, yeah, and I try to think what I can shore up before I make the decision or as I'm making the decision. So like we have a cash flow problem right now, yay,
Mhm.
for August. And
Mhm.
so I'm thinking, okay, what do I have? What can I do? Can I do this? Okay, so I come up with a strategic plan. So, for example, Barbara,
Mhm.
if anybody that's watching your show needs help with metaverse or smart cities, please come to us. We would love to help you. We do right, but so we're afraid about, I'm afraid about what is going to happen with this one thing. But at the same time, I know that it's going to happen. And so I want to plan to have as least disruption as possible. So that's what I do. And sometimes what you plan doesn't happen and don't work out at all. But I also just want to say one more silly thing that has helped me. Sometimes just the hope that this is going to happen gets me through long enough until I actually have the flowers blooming, right? So hope is a beautiful thing. Hope of, oh, I'm going to get that contract. Okay. And we'll be fine. And if it helps me sleep that night, even if it doesn't come through. So I do try to manipulate with myself.
I like that. I would what I hear you saying, actually it is really inspiring, because what you're saying is, from one side there is the fear that would invite us somehow to stop and not move ahead, but we know that we need to go through fear in order to achieve a result. And so what help you bridge, so to speak, that moment, you're saying, you're calling it hope, right?
Mhm.
Hope to get something. I would like to call it, and if I may be in your, if you allow me to be in your story there,
Absolutely.
trust that there are opportunities that, even if I don't see them, they are there waiting for me. Having hope that this will show up, but having this profound trust that there is always an opportunity hidden somewhere, and if we don't see it yet, doesn't mean that it is not there. And so
Ooh, well
going through
said.
the fear, taking action, the bridge to achieving something is the trust. It is as if you are jumping, and the jump is the trust moment, the moment of hope that allows you to sleep at night, and the day after you have data, you have the strategic plan in place, right?
And Barbara, you made me think of something when you were saying that, because well said. But also a mistake that I have made many times, and I'm trying to remember not to make this mistake. I think it is something women make a lot, and men are better at it than us. But
Mm-hmm.
ask for help. Ask
Mm,
to partner. Say, because I have this post right now ready to go, that says, "Hey, you need help with the metaverse. You want to make sure it's human centric design. You need help with smart cities, and smart cities aren't smart if they don't include all of your citizens." And so, remembering to ask for the business, we're so bad about that as women, but ask. You have to ask sort of in an empowering way. Don't just expect somebody else to come and save you. I'm not saying that, but remembering to say, hey, do you have year-end money? Are you
mm,
working on this? I forget to do that sometimes. And my team is like, you really should just go and ask. And it's like, oh, that's right. I should say, by the way, you know.
mm,
So
mm.
I don't know why I forget that, but that's something I forget. And
Yeah,
every time I ask, Barbara, I get such beautiful response. So I don't know why.
yeah,
Sometimes I think in my head, I think, okay, just do it yourself, only because, that's who we are as women.
yeah.
Oh, it's easier just to clean the kitchen myself. Right.
And it
No.
is, you are so right. We are, probably, it has a lot to do with the fact that we are brought up with a request of being good.
Mhm.
And sometimes, falsely, we believe that being good is to be independent and being self sufficient and not asking for help. Whereas we need to expand our sense of what being good means. And being good really sometimes is asking for help. Also, because, and maybe this is an interesting perspective to share, when we ask for help, we do two things. One, we do ask for what we need, but two, the second thing, which is even more important in my view, is that we give the opportunity to the person whom we are asking to
Right.
actually contribute, and contributing makes people feel good. And
Yes.
so actually asking for help is giving an opportunity to someone else to feel better. So
Correct.
I
Right.
think that if we look at from this perspective, this might help us when we are in doubt as women, to ask for help. So thank you for bringing that up. So
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
I have another question for you. If you had in your world, right, the world that you have built and where you are very aware of all kinds of diversities and where there are a lot of biases against diverse people,
Right.
what
Including
would you, including women, exactly. So what would you invite women to do differently, or to stop doing, or to start doing, so that they show up in a different way, that and in a more um, opening
right. Right.
way, opening opportunities. What do we need to change, Deborah?
What we need to change is we need to it's okay to be a woman. And I already told you I'm an older woman. I'm in my 60s, my early 60s. But regardless, I'm a mature woman. But I I came up, in the work environment where, for example, everybody was smoking. And when the first professional job I got, I actually was given a little bow tie because women were trying to look like men then. We were all wearing suits, pantsuits, and women were trying to be men because even at the time we were, I went in the workforce in the 80s. And
Mm,
so women were still considered new to the
mm,
workforce.
yeah.
And so what we know now, what I would like to say to women is please don't act like you're a man, because women are different from men, the way we think, the way we collaborate, the way we everything, the way we nurture. And so be proud to be a woman in business, and then please work with other women, collaborate with other women, join the conversations. And if you're a successful woman, please help our sisters. I make it, Barbara, you ask me to be on the show, and I'm like, absolutely. Because women have to help each other, but we also have to continue to work hard to change the current rules. We have to fight for other women. Let's not be so mean to each other as women, which we know, we do that to each other. And let's be
Mhm.
happy for other women when they get to be CEO, and let's support them and when they're put on a board. But if you're a woman that has means and you have the ability to, help others, help, help,
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
But, if a woman asks for help and she's just learning to be in this field, take the time. If a woman reaches out now, sometimes people reach out to you and they just want. I hate people that reach out to me and every single time they come to me on LinkedIn, they're selling me something. I just disconnect with those people. I I but if you want me to help you do something, or you wish you knew that, or we have to help each other. We have to embrace our femininity and our diversity, and we have to help each other more. So when I am also, as an older woman, um, in my field, well known, I get invited to speak all over the world. So what I've been doing the last few years is I'm saying, am I really the right speaker? Or should you actually have this other speaker that has a visible disability, really young, wonderful leader? Oh, no, 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 no. But then they do it and they have these wonderful results. They're like, oh my God. So
Mm,
let's show the way forward by helping each other, by partnering with each other, by supporting the work that you're doing, Barbara. But and there's nothing wrong with men. I love men. But I'm just tired of women not getting enough funding. We don't get private equity. We're not included on boards. We're not made CEOs. We are a little bit, but there's still so much work to do just with women. And we
mm,
just took away a lot of women's rights here in the United States. We just did
mm,
that. Wow.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And if I may, what you're saying, what I hear, the lesson for me would be, pay attention if, as a woman and as a woman in a position of authority and power, you have built a barrier around you to protect yourself on your journey to a leadership and authority position, and be aware that perhaps it's time to to lower that barrier so
Right.
that you can do what you are suggesting. So be collaborative, creating space for other women,
Yes.
not being fearful of something being taken away from you, because now it is not about me anymore, it is about the collective. So
Right.
this is what I hear you saying, and what women need to learn to do, especially women that have already managed to get on top positions, right?
Right.
And
Regardless of what it took to get there, don't make other women work as hard as you had to.
yeah,
Right.
and what would you then tell men, if you could tell them something that would make a difference, so that the women's path could become a little bit smoother, so that we don't have to worry about the path, but we can actually be proactive and act on achieving results for everybody. So what would you invite our men colleagues
Right. And men
to,
are
to do
very
differently?
right. And before I do that, can I tell you two quick stories about
Sure.
this? So when my daughter was born with Down syndrome, I worked for a woman and in a mortgage banking, and she had a name that people called her before I went and started working for her, but I don't like people calling each other's names, but they called her the alligator lady. And I'm thinking, okay, whatever. So but she really was horrible. She was
Mm,
horrible to work for. She was like, "Well, I didn't need to take time off when my kids were little because I had a nanny." Ladies, not all of us can have nannies. So she was really a horrible woman to work for. Horrible. I learned so much from her about not who not to be. And I remember being so traumatized as a new mother, trying to make sure I was a good worker, but wanting to be a good mother. And I had a woman boss that was giving me a hard time about
mm,
that. And
mm,
so what I did was when I became a manager, I had I had an employee that became pregnant, and I was like, I supported her so much that she
mm.
was shocked.
Yeah,
It was at a time when nobody teleworked, but I wasn't given that. So I wanted to give that to her. And so
beautiful.
I just as two examples, but and some women still work like that. And if they are like that, stay away from them. But for men, what I've seen with the men that are really making difference, and I'm working with so many amazing men like this, is that they value women. They value how we think differently. They value how we will bring in different perspectives that they have not thought of. So,
Mm,
first of all, women, we can tell who the men are that support us and that value. I have this lovely man that I just met. He's ridiculously well known and stuff. And he said, instead of reading my bio, just say he loves his wife and he loves his dog. And I said, you know what? And I love you because I can't think of a better bio. So,
beautiful.
but the men that care about their daughters being successful, their wives being successful, their moms being successful. I mean, most men have at some point had a woman in their lives, but first of all, when men tell you who they are, listen. And same thing with women, right? That Maya Angelou said that when somebody tells you who they are, you have to believe them, even if you know they could be better. And so, but I think men, you have to realize that we are watching and paying attention. And I'll tell you, Barbara, for example, there's this project I was working on, and I wasn't one of the main people. I was in just helping on the side, but there were women involved, and I started noticing a pattern there. This woman left because of a hostile. This woman left. This woman. So I started noticing that every single woman that came in were leaving because you know what? We're not going to put up with it. We're not going to put up with you throwing crap across the room. You're not going to talk down to me. I don't
Mm,
know who you think. No, you're not. So find our power. And if men, or once again, women, are not allowing you to live your purpose, then you need to strategically figure out how to leave. But we have to help the men be successful. Men aren't bad, but not collaborating, not including everyone, not allowing people to participate, that is bad. And that's bad for our society and that's bad for our planet. So,
Yeah, and I totally subscribe with what you're saying because, and I think also that we need to learn to collaborate differently
Yes.
exactly because of what you have just said.
Oh,
So it is as if we have learned the first stage of collaboration, and now we need to move to the zero point 0.2. I don't know if in tech is the second version, right?
I
And
agree.
so and so we need to upgrade our ability to collaborate and discover, explore uh, different ways in which we can talk to each other, listen to each other, see each other, value each other. Because this goes for men towards women and for women towards men. It's wonderful, and it is a program in itself. I love,
Mhm.
I love to
Yes.
do that. I love to do that.
I agree, and it's so important, and the businesses, the corporate brands wanna support that, so if you
Yeah,
have women's groups, make
yeah,
sure that some of these brands know about it, and they really are eager to support us, and
yeah,
also, if you're somebody that works in a corporation or an organization that has, procures, please show a little bit of favoritism to women business owners. I mean, let's help each other be successful.
yeah.
I know we feel that way in the community of people with disabilities. There's billions of us. What would happen if we hired each other? If we supported each other, if we mentored each other, if we did master classes, if we invested in each other,
Mm,
and
absolutely.
women, right? Women are sometimes there are more. I don't think there is right now, but there have been periods of the time in the last few years where women are actually the majority over men. I think right now men are a little bit, but we're treated like a minority, even though we are almost equal or sometimes a little higher. So,
And I think that has to do with the fact that we are less visible, but simply because we haven't started to show up.
yes,
And that's also why these Be to Lead conversation are happening, really to begin to show stories that are carved by women stories, right?
I agree. I agree. And also, Barbara, I just want to say something. So I'm ADHD woman in the United States, and I make some men very nervous, especially from some other cultures. Um, and I and so we also need to be very supportive of women in cultures where um, they're still being treated like, well, you pretty little thing, why don't you go sit, so
Yeah, yeah.
um, and I don't care that I intimidate these men because I think that's their problem, and I'm not going to. And because I'm very nice, but they don't like women that act like we have something to say. And if you're a
Mhm.
man like that, I don't care because the world is changing. Whatever. Um,
Yes. And it is a growing path as well. I think that we are all in need of grow, expand the way we think and feel and see others.
right.
And we need to have the humility uh, to do that because we do need to recognize that we are limited and we might not be so capable of collaborating in new ways, the new way that we need to learn right now. I
Right.
have I have one last question for you, Deborah. Actually, I have two questions. What would you recommend a young woman today? You could give her one piece of advice how to actually evolve and be a leader that is needed today, a young woman. And what would you recommend older women? Because I think that today we
I,
have women that are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they can give so much still. But because of the way we are used to think about the age, they might feel, they might tend to feel obsolete already at 50 or 55,
oh,
60. So I think that we need to think anew the age of women as well.
I
So,
agree.
what would you
I agree.
recommend the young women and the older women to become and to keep contributing as women leader today?
And I'm gonna even expand it to the
Sure.
80s and the 90-year-olds, and the reason why, you see people like Jane Fonda kicking
Mm,
butt in her
mm,
late 80s.
mm,
So, I'm sorry, she doesn't look old to me, she looks spectacular, and she's
mm,
anyway, so, first of all, we start breaking down those age barriers, but and I this man, a good friend of mine said something one time, and I thought, And him and his wife, when he said it, we just glanced at each other because we're like, oh my God. But he's like, don't you hate when you see a woman running down the road, she's jogging and stuff, and she looks so fine, and then you go past her and her face is, "Eh." And I was like, oh, you mean women like me and your wife that have taken the time to take care of ourselves, and yet because we look old anyway, it really, it hurts us, right? Because that means we have no value except the way we look. And anyway, so there's so many
Mm.
biases, unconscious and conscious biases in there. But so let me answer your question. So um, with the younger women, in the first place, we're seeing a lot of leadership coming from the young women, a lot. We're seeing 12-year-olds, 13-year-old. I mean, it's amazing. The younger generation women, they're not sitting back. A lot of them are already contributing and adding value. And where I see them adding a lot of value is by joining, especially some of these people are, they're in their teens. So they're still in school. They're not working yet, but I see them volunteering with UN Women. I see them getting involved with the Younga and the UN. And there are so many advocacy things that you can get involved with. So if your heart says, I don't want him to hurt the animals. I love the animals. Or, no, why do people not have clean drinking water? Well, what do you mean you're excluding people because they're black or they have what? There's so many things to do. Pick what speaks to your heart and then find groups to go out and participate. Don't let anybody tell you you're too young, you're too inexpensive, you have nothing to add. It's ridiculous. You do. The universe lays upon our heart what we need to do. So be heard. And if you want to be heard, come to me and I will make sure you're connected to groups. But find the women, the older women that want to help you. And I'm one of them, and I'll tell you about others. And you can find me on LinkedIn and everywhere. Um, but then speaking to the older generation, my generation, we must leave legacies. We must leave a legacy for the younger women, for and the younger generations. And yes, I don't want to retire and I'm not going to retire, but do I need to hold, because there's like all these positions opening up right now in my field and people are like, oh, Deborah, no, that position should go to a younger person that can be there in that position and really make a difference. And I think my job is a little bit more about choreographing and collaborating and putting teams together. That's just what speaks to me. But I think that we have done a bad job at owning out our elderhood. And I actually talked about that on my show,
Mm.
where I had Stephen Jenkinson who talks about elderhood, because it's changed. We don't, I mean, there's some societies that value the elders, but most societies don't. I know in the States, we're a youth culture. It's all about youth, youth, youth. And, and there's nothing wrong with youth, but, you know, we are born, we grow up, and we die. I mean, and so why are we saying, "Oh, all that matter"? We're acting like fear. It's all fear
Mm.
based. But I
Mm.
believe that we need to step up and we need
Mm.
to mentor people. And if you're an older woman and you're like, I don't want to work, but well, you could donate to causes. Go to Girls That Code. There's so
Mm.
many ways. Volunteer to be a mentor. Um,
Mm.
there's so many ways that the older generations should be helping the younger generations. We should be recommending them as speakers. If they don't know how to speak, we should be recommending that they get mentoring. We should be promoting shows like yours, Barbara, where you're talking to us. Um, but I believe that's we need to create legacies and elderhood, and we need to be proud of who we are. When I turned 60, I let my hair go naturally gray. It had gotten ridiculous. I was like dyeing it every 3 weeks. And I thought, give it up,
Mm.
you're gray. So then I went gray, but I thought, oh no, but I'm going to have some fun. So I put some purple in there, but
Yeah.
let's own who we are. I feel like a beautiful, powerful woman,
Yeah.
regardless if that in my early 60s. But I believe me supporting younger women of all the generations and also supporting women that are older than me too. We don't
Yeah.
want to just go sit in a rocking chair and rock. We want to contribute. So,
Mm. And I love what you have just mentioned. And actually, it makes me think when you say I feel like a beautiful, powerful woman in my 60s, and our job both for powerful women in their 60, for powerful women in their 30, for powerful men in their 80, 70, 30. What we need to learn is to expand what it means to be beautiful.
Right. I agree.
What are the paradigms, the categories that we use to identify something as beautiful or as powerful,
Mm.
and simply expand. Again, it is time to expand our version of human being.
Yes.
Zero point 0.2 or 0.3, maybe
Right.
0.5, I don't know, but
No, I agree.
expanding to really integrate, embrace, accept, see all kinds of diversities, all kinds of beauty. Therefore, I love beautiful things, and I love beauty in itself. I think it is so powerful, and there is beauty always, and in any places, in any ages, and everywhere. So I
And
love
we
that.
do little things to each other that it just little things like this. It seemed like the day I turned 60, there was somebody wrote an article that said 60 is the new 40. No, it's not. 40 is the new 40. So why would I in any way say,
Mhm.
because why don't I honor the women that are in their 40s? Because you know what happens when you're in your 60s? A lot of the things you used to worry about, you don't worry about them anymore. Sorry. You just don't care. Older people, statistically, are happier because they've
Mhm.
had to already live through so many losses. I remember meeting a woman, and my mom moved into um, a new place for seniors. And I was so worried about my mom because she was just such a mess. And I said to this woman, my mom's gone through so much. And she said, honey, you don't get to this age and you haven't walked major trauma. It's just part of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, resilience. But
So,
resilience, yeah. So, just to say that too, as we're breaking everything down, let's really look at just the little things we say, like a beautiful woman jogging down the road is not young. So she, somehow she's nothing. She's just,
yeah,
yeah, she's
yeah,
invisible. What?
yeah, yeah.
Stop. Yeah.
Yeah. When it really, I think that I love to conclude our conversation by really pointing out these. We need to expand the way we think, feel, see, experience, and notice people, reality, situations, and start really to enter a dimension of abundance
Hmm.
that has not only to do with opportunities, but an abundance of meaning, of feelings, of way of looking at things. So I love this, and I think it is a great lessons that you and your story have brought to us today. So thank you so much, Deborah. And if people want to connect with you, what do you suggest them to do? Where do they find you?
Well, I'm on all the social media because I am a technologist. And so I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. But LinkedIn probably is the best place to message me because, gosh, it's so hard to get to all the direct messages. But I'm on everything at Debra Rue. And that's good branding for everybody, by the way. Use your name. So it's at Debra Rue on all of the channels. But also, you can go to my website at ruhglobal.com, ruhglobal.com, or billion-strong.org. And please consider joining us at Billion Strong. All we do is we'll send you a monthly newsletter, but we really are trying to pull people together, whether they have a lived experience with disabilities or not, because we should all care about society. And we're going to do some really cool things at Billion Strong, and we would love everybody to join us. So on social media, DEBRARUH, or you can go to ruhglobal.com or billion-strong.org, or go to Barbara and she'll send you to me.
Thank you so much, Deborah. So I hope lots of people will connect with you, and thank you very much for sharing your story. That has been brilliant. So speak again soon.
Yes. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.